The bell above Petals and Thorns chimed softly as I pushed through the door, my arms loaded with buckets of fresh peonies that had arrived before dawn. The scent of earth and green stems clung to my fingers, a perfume I'd grown to love over the past 2 years working here. At 21, I'd found my calling in this small flower shop tucked between a bakery and a bookstore in Boston's North End, where the narrow streets still smelled of espresso and old stone. "Quinn, those arrangements for the Sullivan Charity Gala need to be ready by 3. Brooklyn called from the back room, her voice muffled by the cooler door. "Mrs. Sullivan's assistant already called twice this morning." I set the peonies down on the work table, flexing my fingers. The Sullivan family. Just the name made something flutter in my chest, though I'd trained myself not to examine that feeling too closely. For 2 years, our shop had been the exclusive florist for Sullivan family events, weddings, galas, even the occasional funeral, though those were mercifully rare. The contract had transformed our modest business into something profitable, something secure. What Brooklyn didn't know, what no one knew, was that I'd noticed him. Declan Sullivan. The eldest son, the one people whispered about when they thought I wasn't listening, the one whose presence at family events was both expected and somehow unsettling, like a storm cloud on an otherwise perfect day. He never spoke to me, never even looked directly at me as far as I could tell, but I felt him watching, always watching. From across ballrooms, from the edges of garden parties, from the shadows of family gatherings, where I arranged centerpieces and wove flowers through arbors. His gaze was a physical thing, heavy and constant, raising the hair on the back of my neck. I told myself I imagined it, that a man like Declan Sullivan, powerful and dangerous in ways I didn't fully understand, would never notice someone like me, a florist with dirt under her nails, and dreams no bigger than keeping this shop running. Earth to Quinn. Brooklyn waved a hand in front of my face, grinning. "You were doing that thing again. That faraway stare you get when you're thinking about something you won't tell me." "I'm just tired," I lied, turning to the peonies, late night finishing the centerpieces. She didn't believe me. I could tell from the way she pursed her lips, but she let it drop. Brooklyn had been my friend since high school, the one who'd convinced me to apply for this job when I'd been working 3 part-time positions just to make rent. She knew me better than anyone, which meant she also knew when to stop pushing. The morning passed in a blur of ribbon and wire, baby's breath and roses. I lost myself in the work, in the precise art of creating something beautiful from stems and petals. By 2 o'clock, the arrangements were ready, each one perfect, each one a silent prayer that maybe, just maybe, he would notice them. Notice me. "I'll do the delivery," Brooklyn offered, already reaching for her jacket. "You've been here since 5 this morning." "No," I said too quickly. "I mean, I don't mind. The exercise will do me good." She raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. We both knew I always insisted on delivering to Sullivan events. Neither of us acknowledged why. The Sullivan estate sat on 10 acres just outside the city, a sprawling stone mansion that looked like it had been transplanted from the Irish countryside. As I drove through the gates, the familiar knot of anticipation tightened in my stomach. Security guards nodded me through, recognizing the Petals and Thorns van. They knew me by now, knew I was safe, approved, invisible. I parked near the service entrance and began unloading the arrangements. The charity gala would be held in the garden tomorrow evening, but setup began today. I knew the routine by heart now, knew exactly where each arrangement would go, had mapped it out in my head a dozen times. "Miss Hayes." The voice made me jump, nearly dropping the armload of flowers I'd just lifted from the van. I turned to find Kieran Malone standing behind me, Declan's second in command and the man everyone said was the buffer between the Sullivan family and their more questionable business dealings. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that could be friendly or frightening depending on the situation. "Mr. Malone," I managed, steadying the flowers. "I didn't hear you approach." "That's the idea," he said, but his smile was warm. "Let me help you with those. Mrs. Sullivan wants to discuss the placement of the arrangements with you directly." My stomach flipped. In 2 years, I'd never spoken to Morgan Sullivan beyond brief pleasantries. She was Declan's younger sister, the public face of the family's charitable work, and by all accounts a force of nature. I followed Kieran through the service entrance, my arms still full of flowers, trying not to gawk at the interior of the mansion. I'd been here dozens of times, but never inside, never past the kitchens and storage areas where deliveries were made. The garden was already taking shape, with workers setting up tables and stringing lights through the trees. It would be beautiful tomorrow. I could picture it already. Candlelight and flowers and the soft murmur of Boston's elite pretending they didn't know where Sullivan money really came from. "Quinn." Morgan Sullivan appeared from behind a trellis, her red hair catching the afternoon sunlight. She was stunning, tall and elegant in a way that made me acutely aware of my dirt-stained jeans and simple t-shirt. "The arrangements are perfect, as always, but I want to make a change." My heart sank. Changes this late usually meant staying until midnight to remake everything. "I want you here tomorrow night," she continued, seeing my expression. "Not just for setup. I want you present during the event in case any of the arrangements need adjusting. You have an eye for this, and I trust you." I blinked, stunned. I don't have anything to wear to an event like this." Morgan waved a hand dismissively. "Come early. We'll find you something appropriate. Consider it a bonus for 2 years of exceptional work." She smiled, and it reached her eyes. "Besides, it's time you met the family properly. You've been part of our events for so long, you might as well be part of the team." I wanted to refuse, to make some excuse about prior commitments. The thought of being present at a Sullivan event as something other than invisible staff terrified me. But Brooklyn had been pushing me to be more assertive, to stop hiding behind my flowers. "Thank you," I heard myself say. "I'd be honored." Morgan's smile widened. "Excellent. Kieran will give you all the details." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Quinn? Wear your hair down tomorrow. You have beautiful hair, you should show it off." After she left, I stood frozen, processing what had just happened. Kieran cleared his throat. "She's right, you know, about your work. The family notices quality." "The family," I repeated, my voice carefully neutral. Something flickered across Kieran's face, amusement maybe, or understanding. "Yes, the family." He handed me a card with a time and instructions for tomorrow. 7 o'clock. Use the main entrance this time, not the service door. That evening, back at the shop, Brooklyn squealed when I told her. "You're going to the Sullivan Gala? As a guest? Quinn, do you know how many people would kill for an invitation?" "I'm not really a guest," I protested, putting away the last of the supplies. "I'm working. Just visibly working instead of behind the scenes." "Still." She leaned against the counter, studying me with those knowing eyes. "This could be good for you. When was the last time you went to something fancy? Did something just for yourself?" "I do things for myself all the time." "Reading in your apartment doesn't count." She pulled out her phone. "We're going shopping. Tomorrow morning. And before you argue, I'm paying. Consider it an early birthday present." I wanted to protest, but the truth was, I had nothing appropriate for a Sullivan event. My closet consisted of jeans, work clothes, and one black dress I'd bought for my grandmother's funeral 3 years ago. "Fine," I conceded, "but nothing too expensive, and nothing too, I don't know, noticeable." Brooklyn grinned, a look that usually meant trouble. "Oh, honey, if you're going to be at a Sullivan event, you're going to be noticed. Might as well make it count." The next morning, Brooklyn dragged me to a boutique in the Back Bay that I'd never have entered on my own. The prices on the tags made my stomach clench, but she brushed aside my protests, pulling dresses from racks with the confidence of someone who actually belonged in places like this. "Try this one," she insisted, shoving a deep green dress into my arms. "It'll make your eyes pop." In the dressing room, I slipped into the dress and stared at my reflection. The woman looking back at me was unfamiliar, sophisticated, someone who might actually belong at a charity gala. The dress hugged my curves without being provocative, the color rich against my pale skin and dark hair. "Come out," Brooklyn called. "Let me see." I stepped out, suddenly self-conscious. Brooklyn's eyes widened. "That's the one. Quinn, you look like you belong there." "I don't belong there," I said quietly. "I'm just the florist." "Stop that." Her voice was sharper than usual. "You're 21. You're talented. You're beautiful. You belong anywhere you want to be." I wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe that tomorrow night, walking through the main entrance of the Sullivan estate, I could be something more than invisible. But as I looked at the price tag, reality crashed back. "Brooklyn, I can't let you pay this much." "Yes, you can. And you will." She was already heading to the register. "Consider it an investment in your confidence." That night, I barely slept. I kept imagining tomorrow, kept running through scenarios in my head. What if I spilled something? What if I said something stupid? What if I saw him, Declan Sullivan, up close instead of from across a room, and he looked right through me like I didn't exist? By the time 7 o'clock arrived the next evening, my nerves were frayed. The dress felt too tight, too obvious. My hair, worn down as Morgan had suggested, felt strange after months of keeping it in practical buns for work. I'd applied makeup with Brooklyn's guidance, but I felt like I was wearing a costume, playing a part I didn't know the lines for. The Sullivan estate looked different at night, transformed by thousands of tiny lights strung through the trees. My arrangements glowed in the candlelight, exactly as I'd envisioned them. I should have felt proud, but mostly I felt out of place. "Quinn." Morgan Sullivan appeared at my elbow, radiant in a silver gown. "You look wonderful. Come, let me introduce you to some people." Before I could protest, she was guiding me through the crowd, introducing me as the brilliant florist responsible for all this beauty. People smiled, complimented my work, asked for business cards I'd thankfully remembered to bring. It was surreal, being seen, being acknowledged as something other than a vendor. And through it all, I felt him watching. Declan Sullivan, somewhere in the crowd, his gaze heavy on my bare shoulders. I didn't look for him, didn't dare. If I saw him watching, if I confirmed what I'd felt for 2 years, everything would become real. "There you are." A man appeared beside me as Morgan stepped away to greet new arrivals. He was young, maybe late 20s, with sandy hair and an easy smile. "I've been looking for you all evening. I'm Ronan Callahan." I recognized the name. He was the accountant for Sullivan Enterprises. The one Brooklyn had mentioned was single and supposedly very nice. "Quinn Hayes," I replied, shaking his offered hand. "I know. Morgan's been singing your praises all week. She says you have an eye for beauty." He gestured to the nearest arrangement. She wasn't exaggerating. "These are stunning." We fell into easy conversation. Ronan was charming and funny, telling self-deprecating stories about his work that made me laugh despite my nerves. He got me champagne, stayed by my side as we circulated through the garden, made me feel like I actually belonged there. "So," he said as the orchestra began playing, "I know this might be forward, but would you like to have dinner sometime? Somewhere that doesn't involve me boring you with accounting jokes?" My heart skipped. It had been so long since anyone had asked me out, since anyone had looked at me with interest instead of just professional courtesy. Ronan was kind and attractive and clearly interested. There was no reason to say no. "I'd like that," I heard myself say. His smile widened. "Really? That's great. How about Friday? There's this Italian place in the North End. Quiet, great food." "Friday sounds perfect." "Quinn Hayes, saying yes to a date?" He laughed. My lucky day. We exchanged numbers and I felt lighter than I had in months. Maybe this was what I needed. A chance at something normal, something real. Maybe I'd been too focused on impossible fantasies, on men who watched from shadows but never approached. I should check on the arrangements, I said, suddenly needing a moment alone to process what had just happened. Make sure everything's holding up. Of course. I'll find you later? I nodded and slipped away through the crowd, making my way to the far end of the garden where I'd placed a particularly elaborate display. My hands moved automatically, adjusting a stem here, a ribbon there, finding comfort in the familiar task. Beautiful work. The voice came from behind me, deep and rough, with an Irish lilt that sent shivers down my spine. I knew who it was before I turned. Knew because I'd been waiting 2 years to hear him speak directly to me. Declan Sullivan stood in the shadows just beyond the light's reach, tall and broad-shouldered in a perfectly tailored black suit. His dark hair was longer than in the family photos I'd seen, curling slightly at his collar. His eyes, I finally saw them clearly now, were storm gray, intense, and focused entirely on me. Thank you, I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. He moved closer, into the light, and I could see the sharp planes of his face, the slight scar above his left eyebrow, the way his jaw tightened as he looked at me. Really looked at me, not the careful avoidance I'd convinced myself I imagined. Quinn Hayes. My name in his voice sounded different, weighted with something I couldn't name. You've been making my sister's events beautiful for 2 years now. I try, I said, acutely aware of how close he was standing. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and dark. She tells me you agreed to dinner with Ronan Callahan. His voice was carefully neutral, but something flickered in those gray eyes. He's a good man, honest, safe. The way he said safe made it sound like an insult. He seems nice, I replied, unsure why I felt defensive. And yes, I agreed. Is there a problem? Declan was quiet for a long moment, his gaze moving from my face to my dress to the flowers and back again. Then he closed his eyes, drew in a deep breath, and when he opened them again, his expression was locked down tight. No problem, he said. Enjoy your evening, Miss Hayes. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd before I could process what had just happened. But I'd seen it, in that moment before he locked his expression down. I'd seen something that looked like jealousy, like possession, like a man barely holding on to his control. And I realized, with a certainty that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure, that I hadn't imagined anything. Declan Sullivan had been watching me for 2 years, and the careful distance he'd maintained was about to shatter. The week after the gala passed in a strange haze, I threw myself into work, creating arrangements for a wedding, a corporate event, and 3 funerals. My hands moved automatically, weaving stems and ribbon while my mind replayed that moment in the garden over and over. Declan's voice saying Ronan was safe. The way he'd closed his eyes and taken that deep breath, as if steadying himself against something violent. Brooklyn noticed, of course. She always noticed. You've been weird since the gala, she said Wednesday afternoon, catching me staring into space while holding a bunch of lilies. Did something happen? Did you spill champagne on someone important? No, nothing like that. I forced myself to focus on the flowers. It was fine. Good, actually. I got a date out of it. Her eyes lit up. With the accountant? Ronan? Quinn? That's amazing. When? Friday night. Italian place in the North End. And you're telling me this in that voice? The voice that sounds like you're describing a dental appointment? She set down her pruning shears and crossed her arms. What aren't you telling me? I wanted to confide in her, wanted to explain the confusion churning inside me. But how could I explain that I was going on a date with a perfectly nice man, while unable to stop thinking about another man entirely? A man who'd never even had a full conversation with me until 5 days ago. "I'm just nervous," I said. "It's been a while since I went on a date." Brooklyn softened. "It's going to be great. Ronan seems really into you. And you deserve someone who's into you, Quinn. Someone who actually asks you out instead of just, I don't know, staring creepily from across rooms." My head snapped up. "What?" "Nothing." She busied herself with the flowers. "Just, you deserve someone direct. Someone who makes his intentions clear." Thursday evening, I was closing up the shop when my phone buzzed. A text from Ronan. "Still on for tomorrow? I'm really looking forward to it." I typed back, "Me too. See you at 7. Another buzz, almost immediately. But this time, it was an unknown number. The restaurant Ronan chose closed last month. Food poisoning scandal. "You might want to suggest somewhere else." I stared at the message, my stomach tightening. Who would text me this? And how did they have my number? I called Ronan. "Hey, quick question. The place we're going tomorrow, you're sure it's still open?" A pause. "Of course. Why?" Someone mentioned they thought it closed. Let me check." I heard him typing. A longer pause. "Huh. That's weird. You're right. It closed 3 weeks ago. How did I not know that? I could have sworn I saw it was still open when I looked yesterday." "Maybe we should pick somewhere else," I suggested, unease prickling along my spine. "There's that new place on Hanover Street, Lucia's. Supposed to be excellent. Let me see if I can get us a reservation." After we hung up, I stared at the unknown number, blocked it, tried to shake off the strange feeling that someone was watching, interfering, steering. Friday arrived with gray skies threatening rain. I spent the day distracted, nearly cutting myself twice while trimming roses. Brooklyn finally banned me from sharp objects and sent me to do inventory in the back room. "You're a mess," she declared. "Go home early, take a bath, relax. You're acting like this is your execution instead of a date with a nice guy." At home, I tried to follow her advice. I took a long shower, dried my hair carefully, applied makeup with a steadier hand than I felt. The dress I'd chosen was simpler than the one from the gala, a deep burgundy wrap style that Brooklyn had insisted I buy. My phone buzzed while I was putting on earrings. "Ronan. Bad news. Lucia's had a pipe burst. They're closed for repairs. I'm so sorry, this is ridiculous. Want to just grab pizza and call it a casual night?" I stared at the message. 2 restaurants, both suddenly unavailable. Coincidence? "Pizza sounds perfect," I replied. Because what else could I say? That I suspected someone was sabotaging our date? That sounded paranoid even in my own head. "Great. There's a place near the waterfront. Tony's. Casual, but amazing. Meet you there at 7? Tony's was indeed casual, the kind of neighborhood place with checkered tablecloths and wine served in regular glasses. Ronan was already there when I arrived, looking apologetic and charming in jeans and a button-down. "I promise I'm not usually this cursed," he said, standing to greet me. "This is the worst streak of restaurant luck I've ever had." "It's fine." I meant it. The casual atmosphere actually helped my nerves. "Pizza sounds perfect." We ordered, and conversation flowed easily. Ronan told me about growing up in Southie, about his mother who still tried to set him up with nice Irish girls from the parish. I told him about the flower shop, about how I'd stumbled into it and found something I loved. "You light up when you talk about it," he observed. "That's rare. Most people just endure their jobs." "I'm lucky," I admitted. Though some days I wonder if I should want more, if I should be more ambitious. Why? You're doing what you love. You're good at it. You're making people happy. Seems like success to me. It was a sweet thing to say, the right thing to say. So why did it feel like something was missing? We were halfway through our pizza when I felt it. That familiar weight of being watched. I glanced around the restaurant, but saw only other couples, families, the staff moving between tables. "You okay?" Ronan asked. "Fine. Just thought I saw someone I knew." But I hadn't, and yet the feeling persisted, raising goosebumps on my arms despite the warm restaurant. Ronan insisted on walking me to my car afterward. The waterfront was beautiful in the evening light, boats bobbing gently in the harbor. "I had a really good time," he said when we reached my car. "Even with the restaurant disasters. Maybe we could try this again? Somewhere I personally inspect beforehand for structural integrity?" I laughed. "I'd like that." He leaned in, telegraphing his intention, giving me time to pull away if I wanted. His kiss was sweet and gentle, perfectly nice. When he pulled back, he was smiling. "I'll call you," he promised. I drove home feeling confused. The date had been good. Ronan was kind and funny and clearly interested. There was no reason I shouldn't want to see him again. And yet, all I could think about was gray eyes in the shadows. A deep voice saying "safe," like it was an accusation. That night, I dreamed of Declan Sullivan. Not the careful, distant version I'd observed for 2 years, but the man from the garden. Close enough to touch. Close enough that I could see the storm in his eyes before he locked it away. Saturday morning, Brooklyn demanded details over coffee at our usual cafe. "So? How was it? Are you seeing him again?" "It was good. He's really nice." "You're doing the voice again." She stirred her latte aggressively. The nice voice, like you're describing oatmeal. "I'm not. It was genuinely good. We had fun." "But?" I sighed. "No but. I'm seeing him again next week. He's taking me to the aquarium." Brooklyn studied me over her coffee cup. "You know you can tell me anything, right? If something's bothering you." "I know." But how could I tell her that something was bothering me? That I felt like I was being steered, manipulated, watched. She'd think I was paranoid. Maybe I was. The following Thursday, Ronan called. "So, slight problem. The aquarium is closed for maintenance next weekend, but there's a concert in the park on Saturday instead. Jazz band, really good. Interested?" Another cancellation. Another convenient alternative. "Sure," I said slowly. "That sounds nice." "You don't sound sure." "No, I am. It's just... Have you noticed that we've had a lot of bad luck with our plans?" "Tell me about it." He laughed. "Maybe we're cursed, but hey, we're adaptable." Saturday's concert was perfect. The weather cooperated, the band was excellent, and Ronan brought a picnic that included wine and cheese and chocolate-covered strawberries. "You went all out," I said, impressed despite myself. "Well, after all the disasters, I figured I'd better make it worth your while." We spread a blanket on the grass, ate and listened to music, and it should have been romantic. It was romantic. Ronan held my hand, made me laugh, looked at me like I was someone special. And yet, that feeling again. Eyes on me. I scanned the crowd, and this time, I saw him. Declan Sullivan, standing near a tree about 50 yards away, hands in his pockets, watching. When our eyes met, he didn't look away. Didn't pretend he wasn't there. Just held my gaze with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Quinn?" Ronan followed my line of sight. "Do you know Declan?" "Not really. I mean, I've met him. At events. He's a good boss. Intense, but fair." Ronan waved, and after a long moment, Declan raised his hand in acknowledgement before turning and walking away. "That was weird," Ronan said. "Didn't take him for a jazz concert type." But I knew. Suddenly, with absolute certainty, I knew. The restaurants, the aquarium, all of it. Declan Sullivan had been sabotaging my dates. Not so drastically that they were ruined, just enough to steer us toward places where he could watch, where he could see me with Ronan. Anger bloomed hot in my chest. What right did he have? He'd never approached me, never indicated any interest beyond watching from shadows. He had no claim on me, no right to interfere in my life. I need to go, I said abruptly, standing. What? But the concert just started. I'm sorry. I just remembered something I need to do. It's important. Ronan looked hurt and confused. Did I do something wrong? No, God, no. You've been perfect. I squeezed his hand. I promise I'll explain. I need to take care of something. Please. He let me go, though I could see he wanted to argue. I grabbed my purse and headed in the direction Declan had gone, fury giving me courage I didn't know I possessed. I found him 2 blocks away, standing beside a black SUV, as if he'd been waiting. What the hell do you think you're doing? I demanded, not caring who might overhear. His expression remained neutral, but something flickered in those gray eyes. Enjoying a concert in the park. Don't lie to me. The restaurants, the aquarium, you've been sabotaging my dates with Ronan. That's quite an accusation. Is it? Is it really? I stepped closer, tilted my chin up to meet his gaze. You've been watching me for 2 years, Declan. Don't think I haven't noticed. And now that someone actually asks me out, suddenly everything goes wrong? He was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then, Ronan Callahan is a good man. I know he is. Safe, uncomplicated. He'll give you a normal life. And that's a problem because you deserve better than normal. The words came out rough, like they'd been dragged from somewhere deep. You deserve more than someone who doesn't understand what he'd be risking by being with you. I stared at him, my anger faltering. What are you talking about? Declan stepped closer, and suddenly there was barely any space between us. You think I haven't wanted to talk to you, to approach you? For 2 years I've watched you work, watched you create beauty out of nothing, watched you smile at people who don't deserve it. And every time I wanted to cross that line, I reminded myself of what I am, what my world would do to someone like you. Someone like me, I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Innocent, good, untouched by the ugliness I deal with every day. His hand lifted, hovering near my face before he forced it back down. Ronan can give you that normal life. I can't. I won't let you into my world, Quinn. And I won't let you make that choice when you don't understand what it means. That's not your choice to make. The anger returned, hotter now. You don't get to decide what's best for me. You don't get to interfere in my life from the shadows and call it protection. I'm trying to keep you safe. From what? From you? I laughed, but it was bitter. You know what's not safe, Declan? Being manipulated. Being watched without consent, having someone mess with my life because he thinks he knows better. Something cracked in his expression, a flash of pain quickly masked. You're right. I had no right. I'll stop. Will you? I challenged. Will you really? Or will you just find subtler ways to interfere? He was silent, and I had my answer. Stay away from me, I said, fighting back tears I refused to let him see. If you can't be honest, if you can't actually talk to me like I'm a person instead of something to watch and protect from a distance, then stay away. I don't need your shadow hanging over me. I turned and walked away before he could respond, before I could see if my words had landed. My hands were shaking, my breath coming in short gasps. But I'd done it. I'd confronted him. And now I needed to figure out what came next. Back at the park, Ronan was packing up the picnic, his expression worried. Is everything okay? No, I admitted, because he deserved honesty. But it will be. I'm sorry I ran off. Do you want to talk about it? I looked at his kind face, his genuine concern. He was a good man, safe and uncomplicated, just like Declan had said. And maybe that should have been enough. There's someone else, I said quietly. I mean, there isn't. Not really. But it's complicated. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Declan, how did you know? The way he looks at you, like you're the only person in the room, even when you're not looking back. Ronan smiled sadly. I'd have to be blind not to see it. I just hoped maybe, but I get it. When someone looks at you like that, it's hard to see anyone else. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'd rather know now than, well. He handed me the blanket. For what it's worth, be careful. Declan's a good boss, but his world, it's not safe, Quinn. Whatever you decide, make sure you're going into it with your eyes open. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. That night, alone in my apartment, I finally let myself cry. Not for Ronan, though I felt guilty for hurting him. Not even for the confusion and anger swirling inside me, but for the truth I'd been avoiding for 2 years. I'd been watching Declan Sullivan just as much as he'd been watching me, and now that we'd finally confronted each other, I had no idea what happened next. I didn't go to work on Monday. For the first time in 2 years, I called Brooklyn and told her I was sick, which wasn't entirely a lie. I felt hollowed out, scraped raw by Saturday's confrontation. My apartment felt too small, the walls pressing in, but the thought of facing the world, of pretending everything was normal, seemed impossible. Brooklyn didn't push, which meant she knew something was seriously wrong. She just said she'd handle everything, and to take care of myself. I spent the day in pajamas, alternating between anger and something that felt dangerously close to heartbreak over a man I'd never even really known. Tuesday morning, Brooklyn showed up at my door with coffee and bagels, refusing to take no for an answer when I tried to send her away. We're talking about this, she announced, pushing past me into the apartment. Whatever happened Saturday, it wasn't just about Ronan. So start talking. I wanted to refuse, to keep it all locked inside where it couldn't hurt as much. But the words came spilling out. Everything I'd been holding in for 2 years. The watching, the feeling of eyes on me at every event. The way Declan had looked at me in the garden, the sabotage dates, the confrontation in the park, his confession that he'd been protecting me from himself. Brooklyn listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from surprise to concern to something that looked almost like recognition. Quinn, she said carefully when I finished, this man has been stalking you for 2 years. It's not. He wasn't dangerous. He never approached me, never made me feel unsafe. Watching someone without their knowledge for 2 years is the definition of unsafe. And sabotaging your dates? That's controlling behavior. She set down her coffee, her expression serious. I know he's attractive and powerful, and apparently tortured about his feelings, but that doesn't make this okay. I know that. Did I? It's just, when he finally talked to me, when he explained why he'd stayed away, it wasn't about control. It was about protecting me from his world. His world. Brooklyn's voice was flat. You mean the organized crime world? Because let's be honest about what the Sullivan family really does. I'd been avoiding thinking about that part. About what it meant that Declan Sullivan, the man who made my heart race and my breath catch, was someone people whispered about in fear. Someone whose business operated in shadows and violence. I'm not stupid, I said quietly. I know what he is, what his family does. Then you know that getting involved with him, letting him into your life, it's dangerous. Not romantic dangerous, actual dangerous. He said the same thing. That's why he stayed away. Brooklyn reached across the table, gripping my hand. Then let him keep staying away. You deserve someone who doesn't come with death threats and FBI investigations. Someone who can actually be with you instead of watching you from creepy distances. She was right. I knew she was right. But that didn't stop the ache in my chest when I thought about never seeing Declan again. Never having another conversation, never understanding what might have been if the world were different. I need to work, I said, changing the subject because I couldn't talk about this anymore. The Maxwell wedding is on Saturday, and we're behind on arrangements. Brooklyn let it drop, but I could see the worry in her eyes. The week passed in a blur of flowers and forced normalcy. I threw myself into work, staying late every night, arriving early every morning. If I was exhausted enough, maybe I wouldn't think about gray eyes and rough voices and the weight of being watched. Friday afternoon, a delivery arrived at the shop. Not flowers, but a small package addressed to me. Brooklyn eyed it suspiciously as I unwrapped it. Inside was a first edition of a poetry book I'd mentioned once, months ago, to Morgan Sullivan while setting up for an event. I'd said it was my favorite, that I'd lost my grandmother's copy in a move and had never found another. The note inside was simple. I'm sorry. For everything. D. Let me guess, Brooklyn said dryly, reading over my shoulder. The stalker has good taste in literature. Stop calling him that. What should I call him? The obsessive billionaire with boundary issues? I set the book down carefully, fighting the urge to trace the inscription on the title page. It must have cost a fortune. And he'd remembered something I'd mentioned in passing, something I barely remembered saying. It's a nice gift, I admitted. Quinn. I'm not going to call him or anything. It's nice, that's all. But that wasn't all, because the book meant he'd been listening even more carefully than I'd realized. Meant that those 2 years of watching had been about learning me, understanding me, not just staring from shadows. Saturday's wedding went smoothly, the arrangements perfect. The bride crying happy tears over the ceremony arch I'd woven with white roses and ivy. It should have felt like a triumph, but I found myself looking for him in the crowd, knowing he wouldn't be there but looking anyway. Sunday, Morgan Sullivan called my cell phone directly. Her number 1 I'd saved from previous work coordination, but one she'd never used to call me personally. Quinn, I hope you don't mind me calling. Kieran gave me your number. Her voice was warm, but carried an undertone of concern. I wanted to check on you. My brother said you two had a conversation at the park last week. My stomach dropped. Of course Declan had told his sister. Of course Morgan would call to do damage control or warn me off or whatever protective siblings did when their dangerous brothers got tangled up with civilian florists. We did, I said carefully. It was enlightening. A pause. He told me what he did, the sabotage. I want you to know that I didn't know about any of it, and if I had, I would have stopped him. It's not your responsibility to control your brother's behavior. No, but it is my responsibility to make sure people who work for my family feel safe. And Quinn, you've been an important part of our events for 2 years. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable or afraid. I'm not afraid of Declan, I said, and realized it was true. Angry? Yes. Confused? Absolutely. But not afraid. Good. Because he's not. Whatever you might think about our family, Declan is a good man. He doesn't let himself be good very often. Doesn't think he deserves it. But he is. Why are you telling me this? Because in 2 years of watching you work, of hearing you laugh with the staff, and create beautiful things and treat everyone with kindness, I've never seen my brother look at anyone the way he looks at you. Morgan's voice softened. And I've never heard him sound the way he did when he told me he'd hurt you. Like he'd done something unforgivable. My throat tightened. What do you want me to do with that information? Nothing. Or everything. That's up to you. I just wanted you to know that if you decide to explore whatever this is between you two, you won't be alone. You'll have family looking out for you, including me. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment for a long time, staring at the poetry book, at my phone, at the future stretching out in 2 very different directions. I could walk away, block Declan's number, refuse any more Sullivan family events, build a life that was safe and normal and free from complications. That's what Brooklyn would want, what any rational person would advise. Or I could do something terrifying. I could choose to understand, to dig deeper, to see if there was something real beneath the watching and the protection and the careful distance he'd maintained. Monday morning, I made my decision. I need you to cover the shop today, I told Brooklyn. And maybe tomorrow. There's something I need to do. You please tell me you're not going to see him. I'm not promising that. Quinn. She grabbed my arms, her expression desperate. Please think about this. Once you're in that world, once you're tangled up with someone like Declan Sullivan, getting out is almost impossible. I know, but I can't move forward without understanding, without at least trying to see if... I trailed off, unsure how to finish. If what? If there's a future with a man who runs a criminal empire? If there's a future with a man who looks at me like I matter? The admission hurt to say out loud. I know it's stupid and dangerous and probably going to end badly, but I need to know. Brooklyn pulled me into a hug. Then be careful, and call me every day. And if anything feels wrong, if he scares you even once, you get out. Promise me. I promise. I drove to the Sullivan estate without calling ahead, knowing if I gave myself time to reconsider, I'd lose my nerve. Security recognized me and waved me through without question, though I saw one of them speaking urgently into a radio as I passed. The mansion looked different in the harsh morning light, less magical and more fortress-like. I parked near the main entrance, my hands gripping the steering wheel as I tried to slow my racing heart. The front door opened before I could knock. Kieran stood there, his expression carefully neutral. Miss Hayes, we weren't expecting you. Is Declan here? He's in a meeting. I can take a message. I'll wait. Kieran studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Follow me. He led me not to a waiting room, but to a library, a beautiful space lined with books and featuring large windows overlooking the garden where I'd confronted Declan at the gala. Where this had all started, in a way. He shouldn't be more than 30 minutes, Kieran said. Then, more gently, for what it's worth, I think you're brave for coming here. Or stupid. Brave and stupid aren't mutually exclusive. He smiled slightly. Help yourself to anything from the shelf. Declan's collection is extensive. After he left, I wandered the library, trailing my fingers along book spines, trying not to think about what I was about to do, trying not to imagine the conversation ahead, the questions I needed to ask, the truths I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. I was examining a first edition Yeats when the door opened behind me. Quinn. I turned slowly, giving myself time to school my expression. Declan stood in the doorway in shirt sleeves and slacks, his tie loosened, looking tired in a way that made him seem more human, more real. I got your gift, I said. The book. It's beautiful. I'm glad you liked it. He didn't move closer, just stayed by the door as if he didn't trust himself. I wasn't sure you'd want anything from me after Saturday. I wasn't sure either. I set the Yeats down carefully. But then I realized I couldn't move forward, either direction, without understanding, without actually talking to you like adults instead of whatever we've been doing for 2 years. Circling each other like wary animals. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. That's what Morgan called it. She called me, told me I'd have family looking out for me if I chose to explore this. His expression shifted, surprise and something that might have been hope. She shouldn't have presumed. Maybe not, but she wasn't wrong, was she? There is a this to explore. That's why you've been watching, why you sabotaged my dates, why you finally talked to me in the garden. Declan crossed to the window, putting distance between us even as we finally had the conversation we'd been avoiding. His reflection in the glass was clearer than his expression, revealing the tension in his shoulders, the tightness of his jaw. I've been in this life since I was 16, he said finally. When my father died and the responsibilities of the family business fell to me, I never chose it. But I embraced it because it was all I knew how to do. How to protect, how to control, how to survive in a world where weakness gets you killed. I'm not asking for your life story, I said gently. I'm asking why me. Out of everyone you've encountered in 20 years of this life, why am I the one you couldn't stay away from? He turned then, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole my breath. Because you were the first person in my world who looked at me and didn't see a weapon. You saw flowers and beauty and possibility. And every time I saw you create something beautiful in the middle of events full of people who would kill each other for advantage, I thought maybe there was still something good left in the world. That's a lot of weight to put on a florist. I tried to joke, but my voice shook. I know, and that's why I stayed away. Because you deserved better than to be someone's symbol of goodness. You deserved to actually be good, to live a good life. He took a step closer. But then you agreed to go out with Ronan, and I realized I'd been lying to myself. It wasn't about protecting you from my world. It was about protecting myself from what it would mean to let you go. So you sabotaged my dates instead of just talking to me like a normal person. I never claimed to be normal. No, I agreed. But you could have been honest. How? How do I walk up to a woman I've been watching for 2 years and say, I'm obsessed with you, I'm dangerous, and everyone around me dies violently, but would you like to get coffee? Despite everything, I laughed. That would have been a start. He moved closer, close enough that I could see the silver flecks in his gray eyes, close enough to smell cedar and something darker. I'm trying to be honest now. I'm trying to tell you that every instinct I have says to keep you at a distance, to let you live your safe, beautiful life. But I can't. Not anymore. Watching you walk away Saturday nearly killed me. What are you saying, Declan? I'm saying I'm selfish. I'm saying I want things I have no right to want. I'm saying that if you run right now, I won't stop you. But if you stay, his hand lifted, hovering near my face like it had in the park. If you stay, I can't promise to be noble anymore. I can't promise to protect you from myself. My heart pounded so hard I was sure he could hear it. This was the moment. The choice Brooklyn had warned me about. The decision that would change everything. I'm not asking you to be noble, I said quietly. I'm asking you to be honest. About what you want. About what this is. His hand finally made contact, fingers brushing my cheek with aching gentleness. I want you. I've wanted you since the first time I saw you laugh while arranging flowers for my sister's birthday party. I've wanted you through every event, every brief smile you gave me when you thought I wasn't looking. And I want you now, even knowing I'm damning us both. That's dramatic. It's realistic. My enemies will see you as a weakness. My family will expect things from you that aren't fair. Your friends will think you're insane for choosing this. And they'll all be right. You're really selling this, I said dryly. I'm trying to give you an out. One last chance to walk away before this gets complicated. I thought about Brooklyn's warnings, about Ronan's concern, about Morgan's offer of family. I thought about the poetry book and the 2 years of careful distance and the way Declan looked at me now. Like I was something precious and terrifying in equal measure. I don't want out, I heard myself say. I want honest. I want you to tell me when you're scared or when you're being overprotective or when you're about to do something stupid like sabotage my dates. I want communication instead of manipulation, and if you can't give me that, then I do walk away. But if you can. I can, he said quickly. I will. Whatever you need. Then stop talking, I said, rising on my toes, and kiss me. He did. And it was nothing like Ronan's sweet, gentle kiss. This was desperate and claiming. 2 years of watching and wanting finally unleashed. His hands cupped my face like I was fragile. But his mouth was demanding. Possessive in a way that should have frightened me, but instead made something inside me ignite. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "This is going to be complicated," he murmured. "Everything worth having is. My world is dangerous." "Then teach me how to navigate it." "I don't deserve you." "Too bad," I said, pulling back to look him in the eyes. "You're stuck with me now." For the first time since I'd met him, Declan Sullivan smiled. Really smiled. And it transformed him from dangerous to devastating. "God help us both," he whispered, and then he kissed me again. The next 2 weeks existed in a strange sort of bubble. Declan and I navigated the beginning of whatever we were becoming with the care of people defusing a bomb. He took me to quiet dinners at restaurants where security was tight and eyes were discreet. We walked through parks at dawn before the world woke up, his hand warm in mine as we talked about everything except the dangerous realities of his world. He was surprisingly easy to talk to once the walls came down. Funny in a dry way that caught me off guard, intelligent in a way that went beyond business savvy. He asked questions about my childhood, about my grandmother who'd taught me to love flowers, about the small dreams I'd never admitted to anyone. And I asked about him, about the boy who'd become a man at 16 when his father died, about the weight of responsibility he'd carried ever since. He answered carefully, editing the violence from his stories, but I could read between the lines, could see the shadows that crossed his face when he spoke of choices made, of lines crossed. "I need you to understand something," he said one evening as we sat in his study, me curled in a leather chair with a book while he worked on his laptop. "There are parts of my life I'll never be able to share with you. Not because I don't trust you, but because knowing makes you complicit, makes you a target." I looked up from my book. "I'm already a target, aren't I? Just by being here with you." His jaw tightened. "Yes. Which is why Kieran has assigned security to watch your apartment and the shop. You won't see them, but they're there." "You're having me followed?" "I'm keeping you safe," he corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" I set the book down. "Declan, we talked about this. About honest communication instead of control. And I'm being honest. My enemies will look for weaknesses. You are now my greatest weakness. That means you need protection whether you want it or not." I wanted to argue, to insist on autonomy and independence. But I also wasn't naive enough to think the protection was unnecessary. Declan's world operated by different rules, and refusing to acknowledge that would be dangerous for both of us. "Fine," I conceded. "But you tell me these things. You don't just assign security without discussing it with me first. Deal?" Relief flickered across his face. "Deal." Brooklyn was less understanding when I finally told her about Declan and me. "You're insane," she declared over coffee at the shop, her voice rising enough that I glanced nervously toward the street. "Quinn, this man runs the Irish mob. The actual mob. People die because of him. I know what he is. Do you? Do you really?" She leaned forward, her expression desperate. "Or are you so caught up in the romance of it all, the watching and the protection and the dangerous man with a soft spot, that you're ignoring reality?" "I'm not ignoring anything," I said. But doubt crept in. Was I? Was I so dazzled by Declan's attention that I was willfully blind to what being with him really meant? "He's having you followed, Quinn. He's assigned people to watch you without your permission. That's controlling behavior dressed up as protection. He told me about it after. We discussed it, after he'd already done it." Brooklyn's voice softened. "I love you. You're my best friend. And I'm terrified I'm going to get a phone call one day that you've been caught in crossfire or used as leverage or just disappeared because you were in the wrong place at the wrong time." I couldn't promise her she was wrong. Couldn't swear that those fears were unfounded. Because they weren't. "I'm being careful," I said instead. "Careful isn't enough in his world." She stood, gathering her purse. "But I can see you've made your decision. Just promise me that when, not if, when things get dangerous, you'll get out. You'll choose yourself over him. I promise." But as she left, I wondered if that was a promise I could keep. That Saturday, Declan invited me to a family dinner at the estate. "Morgan's been demanding to meet you properly," he explained. "Not as the florist, but as someone important to me." The phrasing made my heart skip. "Important to you. Don't sound so surprised. You know what you are to me." I didn't, not really. We'd been careful with words like girlfriend or relationship, as if labels might make things too real, too breakable. But the invitation to family dinner felt significant, like crossing a threshold. "Will your other siblings be there?" I asked. Declan had 2 younger brothers I'd never met, both involved in the family business in ways he never specified. "Liam and Callum, yes, and their wives." He hesitated. "Fair warning, family dinners can be intense. We're Irish, we're loud, and we don't agree on much. But we're loyal. Once you're in for life." "That's both comforting and terrifying," he smiled. "That's the Sullivan family in a nutshell." The dinner was exactly as advertised. The dining room buzzed with conversation and laughter, wine flowing freely as platters of food circulated. Morgan embraced me like we were already friends. Declan's brothers assessed me with curiosity tempered by caution, and their wives welcomed me with knowing smiles. "So you're the florist," Liam said, Declan's middle brother, built like a boxer and with a grin that was more trouble than charm. "The one who's had our fearless leader tied up in knots for 2 years. "I wasn't aware I had that much power," I replied, earning a laugh from the table. "Oh, you have no idea," Morgan said, refilling my wine glass. "Declan's been insufferable, moping around, staring off into space, snapping at people. We all knew something was wrong, but he wouldn't tell us what. Or rather, who." "I don't mope," Declan said dryly. "You absolutely mope," Callum, the youngest, chimed in. "Remember when Quinn was sick last month and missed that event? You were a nightmare for 3 days." I turned to Declan. "I was sick for 2 days in October. How did you even know?" "The flower deliveries were handled by Brooklyn," he admitted, looking slightly abashed. "I called the shop to make sure you were okay." "That's not creepy at all," Liam said cheerfully. "Very normal behavior." "Leave him alone," Kieran interjected from his spot at the table. I'd learned he was essentially part of the family, having grown up with Declan after his own parents died. At least he's evolved from stalking to actual dating. That's progress. The easy teasing, the warmth of inclusion, made something in my chest ache. This was what family looked like when it worked, when loyalty and love coexisted with honesty and affection. "Quinn," Morgan said as dessert was served, "have you given any thought to that offer I made? About expanding your floral business to handle more of our events?" "I have, but I'm not sure the shop could handle the volume. It's just me and Brooklyn." "So hire more people. We'd provide funding for expansion if needed. Consider it an investment in a business we believe in." It was a generous offer, almost too generous. I looked at Declan, trying to read his expression. Was this his influence or genuine from Morgan? "That's something to think about," I said carefully. "I'd need to discuss it with Brooklyn first." "Of course," Morgan smiled. "No pressure. I just think you're wasting your potential in that small shop when you could be doing so much more." The evening wound down around 11. As people started leaving, Declan pulled me aside into his study. "I'm sorry if that was overwhelming," he said. "My family can be a lot. They're wonderful, loud and intense, but wonderful. They like you. Morgan hasn't stopped texting me about how perfect you are." He moved closer, his hand settling on my waist. "Stay tonight. I don't want you driving home this late." It wasn't the first time he'd asked, but it was the first time I was tempted to say yes. The thought of driving back to my empty apartment, of leaving the warmth and light of the Sullivan estate, felt suddenly unbearable. "I don't have anything with me," I said, a weak protest. "I'll give you something to wear." His voice dropped lower. "Stay, Quinn. Please." I stayed. Declan's bedroom was a revelation. I'd expected opulence, but instead found a space that was surprisingly understated. Large bed with simple linens, a desk covered in papers, bookshelves filled with volumes that had clearly been read. The only indulgence was the view, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate grounds. He gave me one of his shirts to sleep in, then disappeared to give me privacy to change. When he returned, his eyes darkened at the sight of me in his clothes, the shirt falling to mid-thigh. "This was a mistake," he murmured. "You wearing my clothes. I'm never going to be able to think clearly again." "Good," I said, emboldened by wine and want. "I like you off balance." He crossed to me slowly, giving me time to retreat if I wanted. When I didn't, he pulled me close, his hands spanning my waist. "We should take this slow," he said, even as his thumbs traced patterns on my skin. "We've already been slow. 2 years of slow." "Quinn, my name was a warning and a plea. I'm not made of glass, Declan. I won't break." "I know, but I might." He pressed his forehead to mine. "You have no idea what you do to me. How much control it takes to not just—" He broke off, jaw tight. "To not what?" "To not claim every part of you. To not make sure everyone knows you're mine." The possessiveness should have scared me. Instead, it sent heat flooding through my veins. "Then claim me," I whispered. What followed was incendiary. Declan made good on his promise, claiming me with a possessiveness that bordered on desperate. His hands and mouth mapped every inch of me, learning what made me gasp, what made me arch into him. And when he finally pushed inside me, his eyes never left mine, watching every reaction with an intensity that made me feel seen in a way I'd never experienced. Afterward, tangled in sheets and limbs, he held me close, his fingers tracing idle patterns on my shoulder. "I love you," he said quietly into the darkness. "I know it's too soon, and I have no right to feel this way, but I do. I love you, Quinn." My breath caught. We'd been careful with words, careful with labels. This was different. This was permanent. "I love you too," I whispered, and felt him relax against me. "Thank God," he murmured. "Because I was terrified you'd run screaming." I laughed, turning to face him in the dim light. "After that? Not a chance." He smiled, a real smile, rare and beautiful. "Good. Because now that I've had you, I'm never letting go." It should have sounded possessive, controlling. But in that moment, safe in his arms and his bed, it just sounded like a promise. We fell asleep tangled together, and I dreamed of flowers and danger in equal measure. The warning came 3 days later. I was at the shop, arranging tulips for a spring wedding, when a woman I'd never seen before walked in. Mid-40s, elegant in a way that screamed money, with cold eyes that assessed me like a threat to be neutralized. "Can I help you?" I asked, my customer service smile firmly in place. "You're Quinn Hayes, Declan Sullivan's new pet project." The venomous way she said it sent warning bells ringing. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't insult my intelligence. You've been seen with him, staying at his estate, attending family dinners." She moved closer, and I resisted the urge to back away. "I'm here to give you advice, girl to girl." I didn't realize we were girls together. "We're not. I'm Catherine Brennan. My husband runs the Brennan organization. We've had, shall we say, complicated dealings with the Sullivans over the years." The name Brennan sent ice through my veins. I'd heard it mentioned in hushed conversations, always with the kind of tension that suggested violence barely held in check. "What do you want?" I asked directly. "I want to warn you. Declan Sullivan is a dangerous man, not just to his enemies, but to anyone foolish enough to care about him. Women who get close to him end up hurt, sometimes permanently." "That sounds like a threat." "It's a warning. There's a difference." She pulled a business card from her purse, setting it on the counter. "When things go south, and they will, call that number. We can protect you in ways Declan never could." "I don't need protection from Declan." "Not from him," she said, her smile sharp. "From his enemies. From the people who will see you as the easiest way to hurt him. You think having guards follow you is protection? It's a target. It tells everyone you matter to him. And in our world, that's the most dangerous thing you can be." After she left, I stared at the business card for a long time before throwing it away. But her words haunted me. Women who get close to him end up hurt. That evening, I asked Declan about it. About Catherine Brennan. About the warning. About whether I really was in danger just by loving him. His expression went cold and hard when I told him about the encounter. "She came to your shop? Approached you directly?" "Yes. She said she was warning me, girl to girl. She was threatening you." He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "Kieran needs to know about this. We need to increase security." "Declan, stop." I grabbed his hand. "Talk to me. Is she right? Are women who get close to you in danger?" He was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then, "Yes, they are. I've tried to tell you that from the beginning." "Then tell me the truth. All of it. What happened to the women before me?" "There was only one," he said finally. "Her name was Siobhan. I was younger. Stupider, thought I could have a normal relationship while running this empire. The Brennans found out about her. Took her to use as leverage." His voice went flat. "By the time we got her back, she was broken. Physically and mentally. She left the country, changed her name. I never saw her again." Horror washed over me. "Declan, that's why I stayed away from you. Why I watched from a distance for 2 years. Because I knew if they found out what you meant to me, the same thing would happen." His hands cupped my face, desperate. "But I was selfish. I wanted you too much to stay away. And now Catherine Brennan knows. Which means everyone knows. Which means you're a target." "Then we deal with it," I said, forcing steadiness into my voice despite the fear churning in my stomach. "Together." "No, you leave. Tonight. Kieran will take you somewhere safe, somewhere they can't find you. I'm not running. Quinn, you don't understand. These people don't negotiate. They don't show mercy. If they take you, they'll hurt you just to hurt me. And his voice broke. "I can't survive that again. I can't lose you like I lost her." "Then don't lose me," I said fiercely. "Fight for me. Protect me. But don't send me away. Because if you do, if you make that choice without me, we're done. I won't be with someone who makes decisions about my life without me." He stared at me, conflict clear in his eyes. "You're asking me to risk everything I care about. I'm asking you to trust that I'm strong enough to handle this. That we're strong enough." I moved closer, my hands over his heart. "You said once that you were trying to protect me from your world, but I'm already in it, Declan. The only question is whether we face it together or apart." For a long moment I thought he'd choose safety over partnership. Then he pulled me close, burying his face in my hair. "Together," he whispered. "But you do exactly what security says. No arguments, no risks. If they say run, you run. Promise me." "I promise." But as I held him, feeling the tension in his body, I wondered if promises would be enough. If love could really survive in a world built on violence and fear. And whether Catherine Brennan's warning was about to become prophecy. The next 2 weeks were suffocating. Security tripled, which meant I couldn't go anywhere without guards flanking me. The shop felt like a fortress, with armed men trying and failing to look casual while positioned at every entrance. Brooklyn grew increasingly uncomfortable, her eyes following the guards with barely concealed fear. "This isn't sustainable," she said one afternoon, her voice low. "Quinn, customers are scared. We've had 3 cancellations this week alone. People don't want to visit a flower shop that looks like it's preparing for a siege." "I know. I'm working on it." "Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you're just accepting this as normal. As if having armed guards watching your every move is just the price of dating Declan Sullivan." "It is the price," I snapped, frustration boiling over. "And I don't have a choice. None of us do." Brooklyn's expression softened. "You always have a choice, Quinn. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You can choose yourself. You can walk away." But I couldn't. Leaving Declan would mean leaving part of myself, the part that felt alive and seen and cherished in ways I'd never experienced. Even if it meant living in a cage, even if it meant fear as a constant companion. "I can't," I whispered. "I love him." "I know," she said sadly. "That's what scares me most." That night, Declan called me to the estate for dinner. Just the 2 of us, he promised. A quiet evening away from the tension and fear. I should have known better than to believe in quiet. I arrived at 7, waved through by security who'd been expecting me. The house felt different without the usual bustle of family and staff. Quieter, emptier, almost eerie in its silence. "Declan?" I called, setting my purse on the entry table. No response. I moved through the house, checking the study, the living room, the kitchen. Empty, all of them. My phone was in my hand before I'd consciously decided to call him. It went straight to voicemail. "Okay," I whispered to myself. "Don't panic. There's a reasonable explanation." But my instincts, honed by weeks of hypervigilance, screamed that something was wrong. I was turning to leave when I heard it. A soft sound from upstairs, like furniture scraping against floor. Without thinking, I climbed the stairs, my heart hammering against my ribs. The sound came from Declan's bedroom. I pushed the door open slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. The room was trashed. Furniture overturned, papers scattered, clear signs of a struggle. And on the mirror above the dresser, written in what I desperately hoped was paint, but suspected was blood. "Come alone. You know where." My phone was in my hand. Kieran's number pulled up. When another message appeared on the mirror as if by magic, I realized with horror that someone was still in the room, using a marker to write, "Call anyone and he dies. East Dock, Pier 7. 1 hour. Alone." I spun, but saw no one. They were still here, watching, waiting to see what I'd do. Every instinct screamed to call for help, but the message was clear. If I involved security, if I brought the Sullivan family cavalry, Declan would die. I looked at my phone, at Kieran's number, at the easy choice that would bring help but might cost Declan his life. Then I deleted Kieran's number from the screen and slipped the phone into my pocket. If they wanted me alone, I'd come alone. But I wouldn't come helpless. The drive to the East Dock took 40 minutes through rush hour traffic. My hands were slick on the steering wheel, my mind racing through terrible scenarios. Was Declan hurt? Was he even still alive? Was I walking into a trap that would kill us both? Probably. But what choice did I have? Pier 7 was abandoned, the warehouses long ago condemned. My headlights illuminated rusted metal and broken concrete as I parked and climbed out. The wind off the water was cold, carrying the smell of salt and rot. "I'm here," I called into the darkness. "Where is he?" Lights blazed on, temporarily blinding me. When my vision cleared, I saw him. Declan was tied to a chair in the middle of the warehouse, his face bloody, his shirt torn. But alive. Still alive. His eyes met mine, and I saw fear there. Real fear. Not for himself, but for me. "Quinn, no," he rasped. "You shouldn't have come." "Of course I came. Did you really think I wouldn't?" I started toward him, but a voice from the shadows stopped me. "That's far enough, Miss Hayes." A man stepped into the light, mid-50s with silver hair and a face that might have been handsome if not for the cruelty in his eyes. Behind him, 4 more men emerged, all armed. "Mr. Brennan, I presume," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "You presume correctly. Catherine said you were brave. Stupid, but brave." He circled Declan's chair like a predator. "She also said you'd come alone if properly motivated. It seems she was right. Let him go. This is between your family and his. It has nothing to do with me." Brennan laughed. "It has everything to do with you, your leverage, Miss Hayes. The thing Declan Sullivan cares about most. And in my business, that makes you incredibly valuable. I won't help you hurt him. You won't have to. Your mere existence hurts him." Brennan produced a knife, pressing it against Declan's throat. "Tell her, Sullivan. Tell her what you're willing to give me in exchange for her life." "Don't," Declan said, his eyes locked on mine. "Don't give him anything." "Territory in the North End," Brennan answered for him. 3 of his most profitable operations, his entire smuggling network. He was willing to trade his empire for you. That's how I knew we had him. Ice flooded my veins. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Ask him. Ask Declan what he was prepared to sacrifice before we took you both." I looked at Declan, at the guilt and fear written across his battered face, and knew it was true. He would have given everything for me, would have destroyed his family's legacy, left them vulnerable, all to keep me safe. "You can't," I whispered to him. "Your family, everything you've built, means nothing without you," he said simply. Brennan smiled. "Touching, truly. But I'm afraid it's too late for grand gestures. You see, I don't just want territory or operations. I want the Sullivans broken. And you, Miss Hayes, are how I break them." "By killing me?" I forced myself to meet his eyes. "That seems short-sighted. Dead, I'm worthless. But alive, as your captive, I'm leverage you can use repeatedly." Declan made a sound of protest, but I ignored him. I was thinking now, strategizing, using the only weapon I had, words. "You could ransom me back to the Sullivans for concessions," I continued. "Use me to force Declan's cooperation on deals. I'm worth much more alive than dead. So the real question is, what do you want me to do?" Brennan studied me with new interest. "Catherine said you were clever. I'm beginning to see why Sullivan is obsessed with you. I'm not interested in flattery. I'm interested in getting out of this alive. Both of us." I gestured to Declan. "So let's negotiate. What do you actually want?" A slow smile spread across Brennan's face. "I want Declan Sullivan to watch the woman he loves choose her own safety over his. I want to see him realize that love is just another weakness to exploit. And if I do that, if I walk away and leave him here, Quinn, no." Declan strained against his bonds. "Don't do this." "Then we'll release him unharmed," Brennan lied smoothly. "You go free, he goes free, and the Sullivans learn their lesson about emotional attachments." I pretended to consider it, letting hope flicker across my face. Let Brennan think I was scared enough, selfish enough to take the deal. Then I looked at Declan, really looked at him, and saw understanding dawn in his eyes. He knew I was playing for time, stalling, hoping that security had tracked my phone, that help was coming. Knew I would never actually leave him. "I'll need guarantees," I said, turning back to Brennan. "How do I know you'll keep your word?" "You don't. But it's your only option." I pulled out my phone slowly, making sure they could see it. "Then I need to call someone. Make arrangements for after. No calls. One of Brennan's men grabbed for the phone. I jerked it back. You want me to cooperate? Then I make one call. To my business partner, to tell her I'm closing the shop for a while. Otherwise, she'll get suspicious and call the police. Brennan considered this. One call. On speaker. No warnings. I dialed Brooklyn, praying she'd understand. She answered on the second ring. Quinn? Where are you? The security guys are going crazy looking for you. I'm fine, I said clearly. I'm at the East Dock, Pier 7. I just needed some space to think. A pause. Brooklyn was smart. She'd hear what I wasn't saying. The East Dock, she repeated carefully. That's pretty far for thinking space. I know, but sometimes you need distance to see things clearly. I'll be home in about an hour. Don't worry. Okay. Be safe, Quinn. I hung up, hoping she'd call Kieran immediately, that she'd understood my message. Satisfied? I asked Brennan. Almost. He nodded to his men. Tie her up. We'll wait here until the Sullivans come looking. When they do, we'll have 2 prizes instead of 1. So much for negotiation. They bound my hands behind my back and sat me in a chair facing Declan, close enough to see the blood still trickling from the cut on his temple, far enough that I couldn't touch him. I'm sorry, he said quietly, his voice rough. I should have protected you better. This isn't your fault. It is. I knew the risks. I knew what loving me would mean for you. I should have been stronger. Should have stayed away. Stop, I said firmly. I don't want apologies for loving me. I want you to tell me what happens next. How do we get out of this? A ghost of a smile touched his bloody lips. Even now you're planning escape routes. Someone has to. You're busy beating yourself up. Your guards will come, he said. When you don't return, when Brooklyn reports your location, they'll come. And Brennan knows that. This is a trap for them too. Declan's expression darkened. Then we need to give them an advantage. How? We're tied up and surrounded. He looked at me intently. What did Brooklyn say exactly? About the security guys? I replayed the conversation in my mind. That they were going crazy looking for me. Not looking for us, for you. Understanding lit his eyes. They don't know I'm missing yet. Which means when they come, they'll be expecting to extract you, not both of us. They'll come prepared for a small operation, not an all-out assault. That's bad, right? No, that's perfect. Brennan will be expecting overwhelming force. When they come in light, he'll think the Sullivans don't know the full situation. It'll make him cocky, careless. And we use that how exactly? Before he could answer, Brennan returned from whatever corner he'd been lurking in. I have to say, I'm impressed. Most women in your position would be crying or begging by now. You're strategizing. I can see why Sullivan is besotted. I don't believe in wasting energy on fear. I lied. I was terrified. But I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing it. Admirable, but ultimately futile. Your guards will come. We'll kill them. And then we'll kill you both. The Sullivans will be left leaderless and grieving. My family will take over their territory, and the balance of power shifts in our favor. You're missing a step, I said. The part where the other Sullivan brothers retaliate and murder everyone you love. Brennan's smile widened. They'll try, but unlike Declan, Liam and Callum are predictable, manageable. It's Declan's strategic mind that's made the Sullivans so powerful. Remove him, and they're just common thugs. You hear that? I said to Declan. He thinks you're the smart one. I'm telling Morgan. She'll be furious. Despite everything, Declan laughed. It was strained and painful, but real. She'll probably punch me. Both of you, Brennan said. I mean, technically she'll punch you since you're the one he insulted. Fair point. Brennan looked between us, confusion flickering across his face. You're both about to die, and you're discussing your sister's reactions? We're Irish, Declan said with a shrug that must have hurt. We multitask. I realized what he was doing. Stalling, making Brennan think we were delusional with fear or shock. Buying time for help to arrive, so I played along. Speaking of your family, I said to Declan, I never asked, what's the traditional Sullivan Christmas? Because if I'm going to be part of this family, I need to know what I'm getting into. You're not going to be part of anything, Brennan interjected. We're ignoring him, I said to Declan. You were saying? Chaotic. Morgan makes enough food for an army. Liam drinks too much and starts singing. Callum tries to prevent Liam from singing. It usually ends with someone in the pool fully clothed. Sounds perfect. You would have loved it. His voice softened. I was going to take you this year. Introduce you properly. Make it official. You still can. We're not dead yet. Not yet, Brennan agreed. But soon. And that's when I heard it. The soft sound of movement outside the warehouse. The almost imperceptible crunch of gravel under careful feet. Declan heard it too. His eyes flicked to mine, a warning and a promise. When this starts, he said quietly, you get down and you don't move until I tell you. Understand? But, understand? I nodded, reading the desperation in his eyes. He needed me safe more than he needed my help. The explosion, when it came, was deafening. The warehouse's main door blew inward in a shower of sparks and metal. Smoke flooded the space and chaos erupted. Brennan's men scattered, weapons drawn, firing blindly into the smoke. I dropped to the floor as Declan had ordered, my hands still bound behind my back, making it awkward, but possible. Through the smoke and noise, I saw figures moving. Not just Kieran and Declan's guards, but others. More professional, more lethal. They moved with military precision, taking down Brennan's men with efficiency that was almost beautiful. Quinn! Kieran's voice cut through the chaos. He materialized beside me, cutting the ropes binding my wrists. Stay down. Declan. We've got him. Just stay here. But I couldn't. Despite the fear, despite the smoke and bullets and screaming, I crawled toward where I'd last seen Declan's chair. Found it overturned, empty. Panic seized me until I heard his voice. I'm here. He was on the floor beside me, his bonds already cut, blood still streaming from the wound on his head, but alive, conscious, angry. I told you to stay down. You're one to talk. He pulled me behind a concrete pillar, his body shielding mine as another round of gunfire echoed through the warehouse. When I say move, we go for that exit. He pointed to a side door barely visible through the smoke. Kieran's men will cover us. What about Brennan? He's already gone. Ran the moment the doors blew. Coward. We need to get you out of here, he interrupted. That's all that matters. Declan, now, move. We ran, staying low. Kieran's men providing cover fire. Bullets sparked off metal and concrete around us, but somehow none found their mark. We burst through the side exit into cold night air, and Kieran was there with a car, engine running. Get in, he ordered, and we did. The car tore away from the warehouse, sirens wailing in the distance. In the back seat, Declan pulled me against him, his breathing labored, his heart racing against my ear. You came, he said into my hair. You stupid, brave woman. You came. Of course I came. Did you really think I wouldn't? I hoped you wouldn't. Hoped you'd be smart. Call for help. Stay safe. Where's the fun in that? He laughed, then winced in pain. Don't make me laugh. Pretty sure I have broken ribs. Hospital, Kieran said from the driver's seat. Home, Declan countered. We have doctors on call. Declan, home. I'm not risking anyone tracking us to a hospital. It's not safe. I I wanted to argue, but he was probably right. So I just held him as Kieran drove, trying not to think about how close we'd come to dying, how easily this night could have ended differently. "Thank you," Declan said quietly to Kieran, "for coming so quickly." "Thank Brooklyn." She called the second she hung up with Quinn, said something was wrong. We tracked Quinn's phone to the warehouse and mobilized immediately. "Remind me to give her a raise," I murmured. "Remind me to buy her a car," Declan added. We made it back to the estate, where Morgan met us at the door with a doctor and an expression that mixed fury and relief. "You're both idiots," she declared, "and we're tripling security again. No arguments." "Yes, ma'am," I said meekly. She softened slightly. "I'm glad you're okay. Both of you." "The doctor examined us," declared Declan, "had 2 broken ribs and a mild concussion, and ordered bed rest that we all knew he wouldn't follow." When everyone finally left us alone in his room, the full weight of what had happened crashed over me. "We could have died," I whispered. "But we didn't. Because of luck. Because Brooklyn is smart and Kieran moved fast. But Declan, this is what our life will be like. Close calls and violence and constantly looking over our shoulders." He pulled me down beside him on the bed, gentle despite his injuries. "I know. And if that's not what you want, if this scared you enough to walk away, I'll understand. I'll even help you disappear somewhere he can't find you. Brennan? Anyone. I'll make sure you're safe, even if it means never seeing you again." I looked at him, really looked at him, bloody and battered and offering to let me go because he loved me too much to keep me in danger. "You're an idiot," I said. "What?" "An idiot. If you think I'm walking away after tonight, after seeing exactly what you were willing to sacrifice for me." "Quinn? I chose you, Declan. In that warehouse, when Brennan offered me a way out, I chose you. Not because I had to, not because I was trapped, but because I wanted to. Because I love you enough to fight for us." "You shouldn't have to fight. Everyone has to fight for what they love. This is just a more dramatic version." I traced the cut on his temple carefully. "I'm not leaving. Not because I'm afraid to, but because I don't want to. This is where I belong. With you. Even if that means danger and guards and warehouses full of explosions." He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were wet. "I don't deserve you. Too bad, you're stuck with me." "God help us both," he whispered, echoing his words from weeks ago. "God help anyone who tries to come between us," I corrected. And then I kissed him, gentle and fierce, a promise and a claiming all at once. We'd survived the trap. But I knew, with certainty that terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure, that this was just the beginning. Recovery took longer than either of us wanted. Declan chafed under doctor's orders to rest, constantly trying to work from bed until Morgan threatened to confiscate his laptop. I divided my time between the estate and the shop, where Brooklyn had finally stopped giving me concerned looks every 5 minutes. "He could have gotten you killed," she said one afternoon, 3 weeks after the warehouse. We were creating arrangements for a spring wedding, our hands moving automatically through familiar motions. He could have, but he didn't, only because Kieran's response team is apparently special forces level. "I'm not disagreeing with you." She set down her pruning shears with a sharp click. "Then what are you disagreeing with? Because you're still with him, still spending every night at that estate, still surrounded by armed guards. I'm disagreeing with the idea that my life with Declan is worse than my life without him." "How can you say that? Before him you were safe, happy, building a good life." "I was lonely," I corrected quietly. "I was going through the motions. I was safe, yes, but I wasn't alive. Not really." Brooklyn's expression softened with understanding and sorrow. "He's changed you." "I've changed myself. He just gave me a reason to." She pulled me into a hug, sudden and fierce. I'm still terrified for you. That won't change, but I'm trying to understand. That's all I ask. That evening at the estate, I found Declan in his study, ignoring doctor's orders as usual. He'd been on edge all week, barely sleeping, constantly in meetings with Kieran and his brothers. The Brennan situation remained unresolved, with Sean Brennan having disappeared after the warehouse confrontation. You should be resting, I said from the doorway. I'll rest when Brennan is dealt with. And how exactly do you plan to deal with him? He looked up from his laptop, his expression carefully blank. Quinn, don't do that. Don't shut me out now. I crossed to his desk. I've earned the right to know what happens next. A muscle ticked in his jaw. There are things about my business you're better off not knowing. Like when you're planning to murder someone? I wouldn't call it murder. Justice, maybe. Necessary elimination of a threat. Semantics. The point is, you're planning something violent, and you don't want me involved. I don't want you complicit. I'm already complicit. I perched on the edge of his desk. I'm with you. I chose this life. That means I don't get to pretend the ugly parts don't exist just because they're happening off-screen. Declan stood, moving to the window, his shoulders tense. Brennan has to be dealt with. He tried to kill us. More importantly, he made his intentions clear. As long as he's alive, you're a target. My family is a target. So you kill him, and someone else takes his place. His son, his brother, whoever, and the cycle continues. What would you have me do? He turned, frustration evident in every line of his body. Let him try again? Wait for the next warehouse? The next trap? I don't know, I admitted. I'm not saying there's an easy answer. I'm just saying I want to be part of the conversation instead of protected from it. He studied me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. You're right. You deserve to know what happens next. But Quinn, once you know, you can't unknow it. You'll be party to plans that could get you arrested if they're discovered. I understand. Do you? He moved closer. Because this isn't romantic danger. This is real. Federal crimes. Prison time if things go wrong. Then let's make sure things don't go wrong. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Listen to you. 3 months ago, you were arranging flowers and avoiding my gaze. Now you're planning criminal enterprises. You're a bad influence. The worst. He pulled me close, careful of his still healing ribs. The plan is simple. Brennan will come out of hiding eventually. He can't run his organization remotely forever. When he does, we'll be ready. And by be ready, you mean? Kieran is tracking his movements. We have people inside his organization feeding us information. The second he shows his face in Boston, we move. Move how? He hesitated, then made a decision. We take him and anyone loyal to him off the board, permanently. Then we absorb what's left of his territory, offer protection to those who want it, eliminate those who don't. Within 6 months, the Brennan organization will cease to exist. The casual way he described destruction, absorption, elimination, sent a chill through me. This was the reality of Declan's world. Not romance or protection or dangerous flirtation, but cold strategic violence. And what's my role in all this? I asked. Your role is to stay safe, to live your life, run your business, be the one good thing in all this ugliness. That's not fair to you. Life's not fair, Mo Stoirin. The Irish endearment rolled off his tongue like a caress. But having you, knowing you're safe and happy, that's fair enough for me. Before I could argue further, Kieran entered without knocking, his expression grim. We have a problem, he said. Brennan's made contact. He wants to meet. Declan went very still. When? Tomorrow night. Neutral ground. He says he wants to negotiate a peace treaty. It's a trap. Obviously. But if we don't go, if we refuse the meeting, we look weak. Other families will see it as the Sullivans backing down. And if we go, we walk into whatever ambush he's planned. I listened to them discuss logistics and danger, watched them plan for a meeting that could very well be a death sentence, and felt something crystallize inside me. "I'm coming with you," I said. Both men turned to stare at me. "Absolutely not," Declan said. "Hear me out. Brennan wants leverage over you. He thinks I'm your weakness, so we give him what he expects. I come to the meeting, visible and vulnerable. It'll make him confident, maybe overconfident. And overconfident people make mistakes. Or overconfident people murder the woman I love in front of me," Declan countered. "No, find another plan." "There is no other plan. You said it yourself. You can't refuse the meeting without looking weak. And going without leverage of your own makes you vulnerable." I moved closer, forcing him to look at me. "But if I'm there, if I'm the bait and the variable he's not expecting, it changes the game." "She's not wrong," Kieran said slowly. "Brennan will be expecting you to keep Quinn as far away as possible. Bringing her throws off his calculations. I don't care about his calculations. I care about her safety." "Then trust me to know what I'm getting into," I said. "Trust that I'm choosing this with my eyes open." Declan looked at me for a long moment, conflict warring in his expression. Then he turned to Kieran. "Double the security. Triple it. I want men positioned at every possible exit. Snipers on every rooftop. If anything goes wrong, if I even think Quinn is in danger, we burn it all down." "Understood." After Kieran left, Declan pulled me into his arms, holding me like he was afraid I'd disappear. "I hate this," he murmured against my hair. "I hate that you're putting yourself in danger for me." "That's what partners do. They protect each other." "You're supposed to let me protect you." "And I do. But protection goes both ways, Declan. I protect you too. Maybe not with guns or strategic planning, but in other ways. By being someone worth fighting for. By reminding you why all this matters." He pulled back to look at me, his eyes bright with emotion. "You think that's a small thing? You think being someone worth fighting for isn't the most important protection of all? I think we protect each other in the ways we can. And tomorrow night the way I can protect you is by being brave enough to walk into danger at your side. You're terrifying, you know that?" I learned from the best. The next day passed in a blur of preparation. Morgan helped me choose what to wear, something elegant but practical, easy to move in if things went sideways. Brooklyn closed the shop and came to the estate, refusing to let me face this alone, even though I insisted she should stay far away. "If you're doing this insane thing," she declared, "I'm going to be here when you get back. Someone needs to yell at you about your life choices." "I love you too." "I know. Just promise me you'll be careful." "I promise." The meeting was set for 8 at a restaurant Brennan owned, neutral ground in theory but his territory in practice. Kieran had already positioned his men throughout the building and surrounding area, a chess game of violence waiting to happen. Declan was quiet as we drove, his hand clasped tightly with mine. "It's not too late," he said for the 10th time. "Say the word and I'll turn this car around. We'll find another way." "No, we do this together." The restaurant was upscale, the kind of place where power players made deals over expensive wine. We were led to a private room in the back, where Brennan waited with 4 of his men. "Sullivan," he greeted with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And Miss Hayes. How unexpected. I thought you'd keep her locked away after our last encounter." "She insisted on coming," Declan replied, his tone neutral. Something about not being afraid of cowards who run from fights. Brennan's smile tightened. Brave words from a man who nearly lost everything in that warehouse. And yet, here we both are. Alive. Talking. Maybe it's time we found a better way to resolve our differences. That's what I'm proposing. A peace treaty. You stay out of my territory, I stay out of yours. We divide the city and both profit without the constant warfare. It sounded reasonable, which meant it was probably a lie. "And if I agree?" Declan asked. "Then we have drinks, toast to our new arrangement, and go our separate ways. No more violence, no more vendetta. Clean slate." "And if I refuse?" Brennan's expression hardened. "Then things get messy. For both of us." I watched the exchange, reading body language and micro-expressions the way I'd learned to read Brooklyn's moods. Brennan was lying. Everything about his posture screamed deception. He had no intention of letting us leave this restaurant alive. The question was, how would he try to kill us? "I'll need some time to consider your offer," Declan said, playing along. "It's a significant decision." "Of course. Shall we have that drink while you consider?" Brennan gestured to a server who appeared with wine. My stomach clenched. This was it. The poisoned drink trope was so obvious it almost seemed like a joke. But sometimes obvious was effective. The server poured, and I watched carefully. Same bottle for all glasses, poured in plain view. If it was poisoned, it was already in the wine, which meant everyone would drink it. Unless there was an antidote Brennan had already taken. "To peace," Brennan said, raising his glass. I met Declan's eyes, saw my own suspicion reflected there. He gave the slightest shake of his head, a warning not to drink. "To peace," I agreed, raising my glass but not sipping. Brennan noticed. Of course he noticed. "Is something wrong, Miss Hayes? You haven't touched your wine." "I'm pregnant," I blurted, the lie coming easily. "Can't drink." The room went silent. Declan's expression remained carefully neutral, but I saw surprise flicker in his eyes before he controlled it. "Pregnant," Brennan repeated, his gaze moving between us. "How fortunate. Sullivan is going to be a father." "If that's true," Declan said carefully, "then we have even more reason to find a peaceful solution. I have more to protect now." "Indeed." Brennan's smile was predatory. "In that case, a toast seems even more appropriate. Sullivan, surely you'll drink to your future child?" This was the trap. If Declan refused to drink, Brennan would know we suspected poison. If he drank, he'd die. So I made a choice. I took Declan's glass from his hand and threw the wine directly in Brennan's face. Chaos erupted. Brennan's men reached for weapons. Declan shoved me behind him, and the door burst open as Kieran's team stormed in. Gunfire. Shouting. The same nightmare as the warehouse, but in closer quarters. More desperate. I hit the floor as Declan had taught me, covering my head, trying to make myself as small a target as possible. Through the confusion, I saw Brennan wiping wine from his eyes. Saw him reach for the gun at his waist. Saw him aim at Declan's unprotected back. I didn't think. Just moved, launching myself at Brennan's knees in a tackle that would have embarrassed professional football players, but worked through sheer surprise. We went down in a tangle of limbs, his gun skittering across the floor. "Quinn!" Declan's roar was primal as he turned, saw me grappling with Brennan, and moved with lethal speed. He pulled me away, thrust me toward Kieran, and then he was on Brennan. What followed was brutal and efficient. Not a brawl, but an execution, precise and deadly. When it was over, Brennan lay unmoving on the restaurant floor, and Declan stood over him, breathing hard, blood on his hands. "Is he dead?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "Yes." "Good." Declan turned to me, his expression a mix of fury and fear. "You tackled him. You launched yourself at an armed man. He was going to shoot you. So you decided to get yourself killed instead?" "I decided to save your life." I moved closer, ignoring the carnage around us. "That's what partners do, remember?" He pulled me against him, heedless of the blood, the witnesses, the danger still present in the room. "You're insane." "I learned from the best." I repeated my words from yesterday. "I love you," he said fiercely. "And you're never doing anything like that again." I love you too. And I'm absolutely doing it again if the situation calls for it. Quinn, are we really arguing about this while standing over a dead body? He laughed, slightly hysterical. God, you fit into this world better than I ever imagined. Is that a compliment? It's the truth. Kieran cleared his throat. We need to leave. Police will be here soon, and we need to control this narrative. The cleanup took hours. Statements to police who were on Sullivan payroll, strategic leaks to media about self-defense and mob violence, and finally, a quiet drive back to the estate as dawn broke over Boston. In Declan's bedroom, we shed our blood-stained clothes and stood in the shower together, washing away the evidence of violence. I'm sorry, he said quietly, his forehead resting against mine under the hot spray. I'm sorry you had to see that. Had to do that. I'm not. This is what our life will be like, right? Danger and violence and impossible choices? If you stay with me, yes, it'll always be like this. Then I'm not sorry, because I'd rather have a dangerous life with you than a safe life without you. He kissed me then, desperate and claiming. Two people who'd survived the unsurvivable and come out the other side still standing. Later, wrapped in clean sheets with early morning light filtering through the windows, Declan traced patterns on my shoulder. You're not actually pregnant, are you? He asked. That was just quick thinking. Just quick thinking. Pity. I kind of liked the idea. I rose on one elbow to look at him. You want kids? With me? In this world? Someday. When things are more stable. When I can promise them something better than what I had. He cupped my face gently. But yes, with you. A dozen little florists running around creating beauty in the middle of chaos. A dozen seems excessive. I'm an excessive person. I've noticed. I settled back against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady and strong. Declan, I lied earlier about not being sorry. He tensed. What do you mean? I'm sorry you had to kill him. I'm sorry that was the only way out. I'm sorry we live in a world where violence is sometimes the only answer. But I'm not sorry I'm with you. Not sorry I chose this. Not sorry for any of it, except that sometimes love has to look like blood and bullets instead of flowers and poetry. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're wrong, you know. About? Love can be flowers and poetry. You give me that every day just by existing. By choosing me despite everything. That's the poetry. The blood and bullets are just the unfortunate context. That's very profound for someone who just committed murder. I contain multitudes. I laughed, the sound unexpected and bright in the aftermath of darkness. Yes, you do. We slept then, finally, the kind of deep, dreamless sleep that came after surviving. When I woke, it was to find sunlight streaming through the windows, and Morgan sitting in a chair by the bed, reading a magazine. You're awake, she said cheerfully. Good, we have things to discuss. I sat up, pulling the sheet with me. Like what? Like whether you want a formal engagement party or something more intimate. Declan already asked me to start planning, but I wanted your input. Wait, what? Engagement? She looked at me in confusion. He didn't ask you yet, but he ordered a ring weeks ago. He ordered a ring. Custom designed. Diamond from our grandmother's collection. Very romantic. I looked at Declan, who was conveniently pretending to still be asleep. Declan Sullivan, are you fake sleeping right now? He opened one eye. Maybe. You ordered an engagement ring? I ordered an engagement ring, he confirmed, sitting up. Was planning a whole thing. Speech, flowers, maybe a string quartet. Very romantic. But after last night, after watching you tackle an armed man to save my life, I figured the speech was probably unnecessary. You figured wrong. He blinked. Wrong? I still want the speech. and the flowers, and maybe the string quartet. I smiled at his expression. Just because I know you're going to ask doesn't mean I don't want to be properly asked. Morgan stood, grinning. I'll leave you two to discuss this. Declan, the ring is in the safe. You know the code. She paused at the door. And Quinn, welcome to the family. Officially. After she left, Declan turned to me, suddenly looking uncertain in a way I'd never seen. I had a plan, he said. Was going to wait until things settled down, until I could give you a peaceful moment. But you're right. After everything we've been through, you deserve proper. He got out of bed, naked and unself-conscious, and retrieved a small box from his safe. Then he climbed back into bed, kneeling in front of me with the box in his hands. Quinn Hayes, he began, his voice rough with emotion. For 2 years I watched you create beauty in my world. For 3 months, I've been privileged to know you, love you, learn that you're even more extraordinary than I imagined. You've saved my life, challenged my assumptions, and refused to let me hide behind walls or distance or protection. He opened the box, revealing a ring that took my breath away. A single diamond, simple and perfect, flanked by smaller stones that caught the light like captured stars. I can't promise you a safe life. I can't promise you ease or peace or any of the normal things people promise when they propose. But I can promise you honesty and loyalty, and a love that will burn until my last breath. So, Mostoirin, my little darling, will you marry me? Will you choose this dangerous, complicated life with me, knowing exactly what it means? I looked at him, this dangerous man who'd become my anchor, and felt certainty settle into my bones. Yes, I said simply. To all of it. The danger, the complications, the love. Yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and it fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for me all along. Then he kissed me, gentle and fierce, a promise and a claiming and a beginning all at once. I love you, he whispered against my lips. I love you too, even though you're a controlling, overprotective, occasionally murderous mob boss. Especially because I'm a controlling, overprotective, occasionally murderous mob boss. That too. We stayed in bed for the rest of the morning, ignoring the world outside, ignoring responsibilities and consequences, and the cleanup still happening from last night's violence. For a few stolen hours, we were just Quinn and Declan. Not florist and mob boss, not survivor and protector. Just 2 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way and decided to build something real in the middle of chaos. Eventually, we'd have to face the world again. There would be questions and consequences, and the ongoing challenge of navigating a life split between flowers and blood. But for now, I lay in Declan Sullivan's arms, his ring on my finger, and knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. Love wasn't safe. It wasn't easy. It wasn't the fairy tale I'd once imagined. It was better. It was real. It was ours. Did you like